Hey y'all, this is PamEntertainmentTV coming at you all with a podcast style video. This video is going to talk about pop culture events, not necessarily spilling any tea, but just going over things in the world of culture and news and trying to have a little conversation about it. A couple of weeks ago now, we had the rap artist DaBaby be in a bit of controversy, particularly at the Rolling Out concert where he was on stage. And in his words, he was doing a call out to the crowd to hype them up in the middle of his set. And one of the things that he talked about was, put your hands in the air if you don't have AIDS and you're not going to be dying in the next couple of weeks. Put your hands in the air if you're not doing certain acts, fellatio acts in the parking lot of the Rolling Out concert. Telling women if their vaginas, smell or taste like water, throw your hands up. Just a whole bunch of things like that. And he received a lot of negativity from the the gay community. I'm not sure about the letters and how they're formed, and I don't want to mess that up. So my point is not to go into a rant about what he said or anything like that. The angle that I wanted to talk about is community. Do you know who your community is? Do you know what community represents you? Do you know who your tribe is? Do you know who your family is? Do all three of those entities, do they represent you? Do you represent them? And do you fight for your community, your tribe, your family? The reason why I talk about this is because a lot of reason what I saw is that earlier in his set, DaBaby brought out Tory Lanez. Now, what we do know about Tory Lanez is last year during the pandemic, him, Meg Thee Stallion, her friend, were over with Kylie Jenner. Was at a pool party. They left the pool party, and no one is saying exactly what happened, but we do know that Megan's foot was injured. There were police. I guess there were a media helicopter, and we see that her foot was injured. Through all of that, with them not speaking and not talking about anything, Meg goes to the hospital. We find out that she has been hit in her foot, I guess with shrapnel, and there's shrapnel in her foot. But all of that to say that at some point and sometime, somebody fired a firearm, which went off, and bullet fragments and bullet shrapnel ended up in Meg Thee Stallion's foot. That's just the background information. What also happened at that Rolling Loud concert is that DaBaby, after Meg Thee Stallion had done her set, DaBaby did his set, and he brought out Tory Lanez. Now, people will say, oh, well, he might have been there. It might have been a coincidence. No. DaBaby made a whole show by bringing out Tory Lanez under this, the Masked Singer type costume, and asked the crowd to guess who it was. He even taunted, like, hey, I'm going to pay anybody $1 million if you can guess who this is. And it was ha ha he he. And everybody was laughing. And so it got to the point where he revealed who it was, and boom, it was Tory Lanez. Now, it's my understanding they did a song together in the past few months or something like that. So I'm assuming that he brought him on to do the song. But what I found interesting about that particular thing is is out of all the artists and all the duets or the features that DaBaby has done, he'd bring out Tory Lanez. Now, why is that so important? Again, Meg Thee Stallion is a scheduled artist on Rolling Loud. She just did a set either right before, sometime during that day, she had done a set. So, why is that important? Well, a couple of things. As we talked about back a few minutes ago about the history of Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez, it is my understanding that there was a restraining order against Tory Lanez, from Meg Thee Stallion. So, all of that. My concern was, why was it such a big deal to bring any artist that you've done a feature with? And you've done a feature with Meg Thee Stallion. And I understand that there was a kerfuffle between DaBaby and Meg Thee Stallion because DaBaby was entertaining or having back and forth with Tory Lanez, and they appeared to be all friends. Now, I missed a part. One of the things is that DaBaby, when all of this happened, he had made some mention when the allegations of Tory Lanez shooting at Meg Thee Stallion happened. He had come out with support for Meg Thee Stallion. Just a little bit, hey, what seemed to be support at the time. Excuse me. So now, all of a sudden, you and Tory Lanez are thick as thieves, and you're joined at the hip, which seems to be odd. Now, for me, that's odd on Tory Lanez's part, because why would you want to be somewhere around someone who has accused you of something that you say that you didn't do? I don't know the legalities of that, but why would you be around that person, and why would you be around someone who will continue to work with you, to be around someone that you say that you didn't hurt, but you are accused, and there is a court case pending, of shooting her? I don't understand that. That seems so ill-advised to me. Don't understand that. But this is not the first time that we have known Tory Lanez to be someplace where Meg Thee Stallion has been, even though he supposedly has had a restraining order. And I only say that is because it seems patterned. It seems patterned. I know people will say, well, it wasn't nothing, and she possibly wasn't there. And why do you make a big deal about it? No, two reasons. I think a couple of years ago, it was the same thing at Rolling Loud. Not the same thing, but you remember when Cardi B was performing, and at that time, her husband Offset interrupted the whole show, stopped the show, so he can beg and plead to get her back. Not the same thing, but the point that I'm making is that that's her job. Meg was at her job, doing her job. DaBaby was at his job, doing his job. If those two people would have been working at a 9 to 5, and this type of thing would have happened where DaBaby would have brought in the accused assaulter of his coworker, there would have been consequences and repercussions. So I'm interested as to why that happened, and what happened at Rolling Loud. Why were there no? Well, I guess it would be immediate repercussions because they decided that he was no longer to be on their tour. And we're speaking about DaBaby. So I'll refrain from that point. And also, I just wanted to let you all know that DaBaby has been pretty much canceled from doing concerts, I guess, from the rest of the summer season, because as of this podcast, he has lost 4 to 5 scheduled festivals and concerts. So, when you look at possibly that DaBaby is one of the hottest artists right now, you're talking about he's lost anywhere from $250 to possibly $300,000 per festival. So he's lost pretty much. I know he's lost 4, and I'm thinking that he's lost 5 festival spots. So you're talking about, anyway, this man with his mouth lost about $1 million. Now, again, at the time of this podcast, a couple of days after people had kind of called him out, he doubled down. He said what he said. He meant what he said. And that his gays weren't nasty and had AIDS. And just it ignited a firestorm of stuff, even to the point that Elton John came out and said something about the DaBaby. Madonna came out and said something about DaBaby. I think her name is Dua Lipa, who did a song with DaBaby, came out and said some things, about DaBaby. And I think quickly, after DaBaby and DaBaby's team quickly saw that he was about to lose buku money, he was about to lose a lot of stuff. All of a sudden, there was an apology. It was written by his publicist, and that's fine, because anything that DaBaby was saying was not going to come out. It wasn't going to come out any kind of way. I'm just going to be real, and I think it would have been best that his publicist had written the apology. But it seems like the damage was done. I think to the point that Elton John came out for the LGBTQIA, got it, community. I think it was a done wrap for him. So that's pretty much the background information. And as I told you at the top of the podcast, that I asked you, who is your community? Who is your tribe? Who is your family? Do they represent you? Would you fight for them? The reason why I talk about that, because I just outlined 2 separate incidents that happened in the same day with one artist and affecting 2 different communities. DaBaby ran afoul of the LGBTQIA community, and he ran afoul of the community of Black women. Two separate communities. Maybe some intersecting, because there are Black women that are part of the LGBTQIA community. Which is true. And here's what I'm thinking. So when all of this went out, everybody whose community, between those 2 communities, were affected. The LGBTQIA community was heard. They didn't scream louder, but they were heard. And they were effective to get DaBaby taken off of the festivals because of what he said about HIV, members of the LGBTQIA community, and other stuff. Okay? So again, when we talk about community, who's your community? Because Black women were talking about how bad it was and what he said. And they've also talked about some of DaBaby's behavior prior to that. Now, I did not read any of this information, but it's my understanding that DaBaby had been accused of slapping a woman at one of his concerts. DaBaby has been accused of, I know that he is accused of fighting or beating up other people. And I'm not going to say the last thing because, like I said, I didn't read anything like that. But I do remember that he has had some issues with the law in regards to assault and other things, which would come out to be possibly felonies within the states that those atrocities had happened. And so again, I ask, who's your community? Who's your tribe? Who's your family? I would be remiss to not say that although DaBaby is not part of my family and DaBaby is not part of my tribe, DaBaby is part of my community, African American community. And my community said nothing or made no motions or no moves when DaBaby had made some, not verbal, but had participated, in my opinion, now this is my opinion alone, that he participated in essence, intimidation tactics against Meg Thee Stallion by bringing out Tory Lanez, knowing that Tory Lanez had a restraining order against him. Now, I'll go over and say what I have heard some people within my community say. Oh, it wasn't that bad. She had done her set and she was gone. But she still was at her workplace. She was scheduled to be on that concert and to do that concert for a couple of days. So she was at her workplace. Meg Thee Stallion was not obligated to then go run and cower back into her trailer or whatever place that they had for her to rest after her work. She had every right to be backstage, to take in the ambiance and things that were going on, to view her co-workers who were about to get on and to do some work. So she had the right and the opportunity to do that. Meanwhile, DaBaby is out here with Tory Lanez, getting him ready and gussied up. I like that word. To go out on stage. He purposefully did that. You know it was purposeful. Because again, Tory Lanez was not scheduled to be at Rolling Loud. There was no reason for Tory Lanez to be on that festival ground. None. I know some people within my community will say, well, he could have been out in the audience and he could have been enjoying the show. Yeah, he could. And he could have done it without anybody knowing that he was there. But that's not what he did. There was a whole spectacle and a whole show. And that's what I saw from the clips off of Instagram and a couple of clips I saw on Twitter. That it was a purposeful thing. Guess who's up under this mask-like costume, the Masked Singer-like-esque costume? I give you $100,000. I'll give you a such and such amount somebody can guess. And it was a whole skit in DaBaby's set. So it was purposeful. It seemed like it was pre-planned because, you had to get the costume from somewhere. You had to arrange for Tory Lanez to be backstage and to get on stage. And I also look at Rolling Loud as far as, and I made mention earlier about Cardi B and Offset. Rolling Loud had to have made accommodations for that. Just like they made accommodations for Cardi B's, at that time he was her estranged husband, to be on stage with flowers and stuff like that. In my opinion, that was problematic, because there was no way in the world that Rolling Loud did not know that they were having marital issues. And you allowed this man with marital issues to be on stage with a woman while she's at her job. That's problematic for me. So it's also problematic to know that all of this went on with Tory Lanez and him being, because he obviously had to have permission to be backstage. So that means that if the concert hall didn't know what was going on, that means that, as I can think about it and surmise what could happen, if we say that Rolling Loud didn't know what was going on, is that DaBaby had to hide Tory Lanez within his entourage. And in doing so, that means that Tory Lanez has been on the campgrounds for the event the whole entire time that Meg Thee Stallion was there. That meant that there was time had to be spent getting him into costume, him doing whatever he needed to do to get ready, but to get him into costume, to get him on that stage. So if that can happen, it's quite interesting with the security level and things like that of these concerts. Again, I'm just speaking aloud. These are my opinions. Just trying to, in my head, try to figure out that whole scenario. Did she walk past him in the costume? That would be interesting to know. Did she know he was there? That would be interesting to know. What actions was taken afterwards? Because apparently they had to do the show again. What actions were taken afterward? After they had done the show. That's interesting to know. But getting back to who's your family, who's your tribe, who's your community. The LGBTQIA community was very successful in getting DaBaby, I would just say, censured. Put in a situation where he will not be able to make money because he said some very ignorant and uninformed things about HIV and AIDS. And because of the platform that he had was spreading some very uninformed views of HIV and AIDS, and also talking about sexual acts that are performed by people in the LGBTQIA community and the heterosexual community. Let's just be real. As a family, as a tribe, but more importantly, as a community, they rallied together. They saw the speech that DaBaby said, and they thought it was offensive, and they worked as a community to have him censured. My community, the community in which DaBaby hails from, we said nothing. Nothing in that level of community. Now, within our families and within our tribes, we have made, we had talked about it, and that's pretty much what we've done. We've talked about it. You know, it's always interesting within my community, which is the African American community. Had a white man shot Meg Thee Stallion, there would be marches and things would be taken down and all of these different things. But when a black man shoots at a black woman, then as black women, we are made to be responsible that we shouldn't want a black man in the criminal justice system because of the atrocities that go on in the criminal justice system. Now, I would say that would be true if we knew 100% that this person didn't do what they did. But we know that actions took place that night and things were investigated to the point that now there is a trial or a preliminary hearing that's coming up for this action. And so, is my community telling me that when it doesn't matter what black men do, that they should not be held accountable for it? Who's my community? Is this my community? Are we saying as a community that men should not be held accountable for any of the actions or atrocities done? Because I find my community interesting. You know, we can mobilize and we can fight for the atrocities that happen from other people, from other communities, particularly those that identify with being white or any other community. And we are successful, and because of those rallying cries, that when someone says something racist, bigoted, prejudiced against our community, we are effective getting them called out. And then just like the other festivals, Lollapalooza and all the other festivals decided they no longer wanted to be in association with DaBaby, we are successful with people not having their jobs because how they have run afoul of our community. But it's one of our own that's run afoul of our own. And I am speaking of Tory Lanez and the Meg Thee Stallion situation. And I am also speaking on the direct behaviors of the DaBaby in regards to that situation. Where is the outcry? Where is it? Are we so against the criminal justice system that we don't even want people who have done atrocities to our community to go to jail? Now, I know I'm all over the place, and what I just spoke on, that's not a subject that I want to completely delve into, because that will take for me to have a little bit more thought to get my thoughts organized for that. But my question with all of that and all we have just talked about Who is your family? And let me define these things, and I know that's probably so late in the podcast, but your family is who you were born into. Your family is also who you recognize as friends, very close friends, not associates, but very close friends. And they can be part of your family. These are people who you would, if something happened, you would get up and you would go and you would assist. You'd break bread with them. You'd have fun with them. That's your family. Your tribe is your neighborhood. These are the people within your immediate neighborhood that you live together. Your values and moral systems are similar. You know, your belief systems are similar. The best that would be like your tribe. Again, would be your neighbors that you lived and you grew up with, or was in your school, or if you have a religious connection, you know, like your church or your mosque or wherever it is that you do religion. Or your tribe could be a group of y'all that, you know, y'all have an affinity to play basketball or football or knit, you know, or sing and do hair together. And it's enough of you all that, you know, it's more than one family. It's a tribe. And then your community. That community is the buildup of several tribes where they have something, one thing, maybe two things in common. You know, I talk about, you know, your racial identity, your religious identity, those things are along. So that means your community. Within this, you all have values and morals, a system that you're willing to fight for. And you'll fight for the people within your community. So those several tribes within that community you'll fight for. Right? So my question to you, just to give some ponderance of thought, what community do you represent? What community represents you? When someone does something to your community or says something about your community, how do you represent your community? How do you fight for your community? Or do you fight for your community? So I want to conclude this and say, know your family. Fight for your family. Know your tribe. Fight for your tribe. Know your community. Represent your community. And fight for your community. This is Pam from PamEntertainmentTV. Just some food for thought. Thank you so much for listening. I know I sound deep and heavy. It's early in the morning when I've done this podcast. So y'all take care of each other. Y'all stay safe. And I'll see you next time.